don't we go ahead and call this meeting to order? It is 12:03. Welcome. Maybe we can do a quick introduction of who's with us today and then jump right in. I'm Amanda Craig. I've been on the committee the year after, so 2023. And so this is my first renewal or my first exposure to this. So I really appreciate your guidance, Summer, and welcome.
I can go next, Amanda. Hi, everyone. This is Suman. Sorry, I'm unable to turn my camera on here. I'm in motion, I'll say. I am 1 week old to this committee. However, I'm excited to kind of dive right in. So looking forward to this working session with you all.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So this is Cliff Van Voorhees. I'm actually driving. I should be home in about 10 minutes, but I didn't want to miss the beginning of the call. That's why my camera's off. It would be a little dizzy for you, I think. I have been on the committee for several years, including both applications for sustainable CT.
And hey, everybody, I'm Lauren Rossi, also somewhat new, been on the committee for a few months.
It's really nice to meet you all. I'm Summer. I'm the Sustainable Communities Fellow at Sustainable CT. So my job mostly entails helping towns apply for certification, answering questions about our program, supporting sustainability initiatives, or I also help with our no-cost assistance program, one of them hosting CPACE workshops in coordination with the Connecticut Green Bank. So helping municipalities host and coordinate those workshops is what my main role is at Sustainable CT.
I don't know if I'm left, but I'm Alexis Sweet. I'm just a local resident who was listening and wanted to say something in the public comment section.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and start with public comments before we jump into the audit?
Awesome. I guess that's me. So Alexis Sweet, Beverly Place. I haven't been following what your committee has been focusing on, but I think maybe there's been some work on composting and recycling at the schools this year in particular. So thank you for your attention to that important topic. My comment today was just around clean energy, and I was looking at the charge for this committee, and I see that you guys are also the Clean Energy Task Force for the town of Darien, per the Sustainability Committee's working charge, I guess. So with that in mind, I was wondering if you guys would consider weighing in on the proposed landscaping practices for the maintenance of Great Island. You know, as we know, Darien is sort of bookended by towns who have recognized the harmful effects of gas-powered lawn equipment and have shifted their practice accordingly. And Darien's a little bit slower to focus on that, it seems. Anyway, I realize that you guys probably had a very limited bandwidth. So I just wanted to put out there that this is an opportunity, if possible, to work with the Public Works Department to sort of scale back on their environmentally harmful use of the gas-powered lawn equipment. I don't know what kind of influence you guys have, or whether you can make recommendations to them, but was hoping that maybe you guys could, as a committee, put forward a recommendation to advise them to, at the very least, just cut back on the number of times that they mow the lawn or blow the leaves on this new sort of 60-acre ecological gem. So I don't know if it's possible, but I just wanted to raise that, and I appreciate you guys considering it if possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in and sharing that with us. It's absolutely something we've been talking about, and we're so in agreement with what the state of Connecticut is doing and some of our neighboring towns around gas-powered toys. And so really appreciate your comments. Thank you. Sophie?
I don't know if Cliff's on the call, but I know we've kind of been circling around and around with the gas powered blowers and kind of what we can do with that. And so I think in reference to Great Island specifically, you know, maybe there's some ideas and thoughts that we can bring to our next official meeting. That's not just Sustainable CT, and we can kind of dig in more and perhaps get something written that we can submit again.
And this meeting is really focused on the sustainability CT application. But the beauty about your comment, Alexis, is as we're going through the audit, this is something that'll be top of mind for recommendations and what we're focusing on the next couple of years. So thank you for that. Sophie, do you have a comment for public comments?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, sorry. I just am echoing Alexis. Sorry, I jumped on late and didn't even hear Alexis, but I just wanted to echo her comments. I always find it pretty shocking that we're bookended by towns that are doing way more than we are on reducing lawn equipment emissions, also making progress on dark sky. Greenwich last spring passed one of the state's, actually the state's most restrictive landscape lighting initiative. And I just think that on several fronts, we need to be kind of following the steps of our neighboring towns. So,
Yes, thank you so much. We've actually, our chair would be tickled pink. He's not with us right now by this because he has put a lot of time and energy researching what our neighbors are doing and how important it is to the environment and the earth and the whole thing. So we will definitely make mention of both of your comments. Sophie, what's your last name?
Murphy,
Yep, and address?
68 Salem Straits, Straits.
Yeah, so thank you both. As you might have heard me say, today's focus of our meeting is on our sustainability CT application. And we have somebody from the state joining us. So it's kind of a working meeting, but this will definitely be on our agenda moving forward. So keep an eye out, come back to any meetings that if you have additional information or questions, we'd be happy to answer.
And
Okay.
we're looking for additional help for passionate folks in Darien, Alexis and Sophie. So if you're interested, in getting more involved with us, also that is open.
Okay, we will now officially close public comments and move on to the sustainability CT application. Everybody has the most recent version of that. Lauren did a great job giving us a more user-friendly. Summer, would it make sense for you to kind of walk through that, or what's the best way to do this?
Yeah, I wasn't sure what's best for you all. I wasn't 100% sure if you had worked on a sustainable CT application in the past or not. I'm happy to go and walk through it, or I'm happy to just answer any questions that you may have regarding it and then talk about next steps. It's up to you guys what would be most beneficial for the group.
I think since our group is really new to the application, we have one member that was on at its inception of the application. It would be really helpful to give us kind of a down and dirty, maybe some places of focus. We can ask questions along the way, and then leave this meeting with some of our to-do items as a committee.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess just to preface, the audit, the way the application works is, I'm not sure, do you know the different levels of certification or the qualifications for certification, all of that stuff?
Yes, and
We
we're
need to-
with
yeah.
this one at bronze.
You're aiming for bronze?
Yeah.
So bronze certification is 200 or more points, and then the completion of one equity toolkit is the requirements for bronze certification. We have two certification deadlines every year, one in April and one in August. The first one is April 8th, and then the August deadline is August 19th. And the only other requirement for certification, so it's 200 more points, that toolkit, and then you have to complete at least one sub action in all of our 12 categories. Is the other requirement. So you do have to hit at least one action in every category 1 through 12. And then category 13 is kind of like our catch-all. So you may have noticed our action roadmap is we think of sustainability very broadly. We have hundreds of actions that municipalities can complete that we consider sustainability best practices. But if there's an action that your town is completing that just doesn't align anywhere in our roadmap and you can't find anywhere to put it, that would be category 13, where you can get credit for and points for that action. So previously, it looks like Darien submitted the buddy campaign into that 13.1 catch-all, for example. And yeah, so I guess looking at the audit now, so what the audit did is it looked at every single sub-action that Darien applied for back in 2022 and received credit for, and then determined whether that action, like what is specifically in your application would be still eligible for credit in 2025, because the way the application portal works is it's almost like a storage cloud or a drive. So anything that you uploaded in 2022 is still there. All that documentation, everything, it's still in there. So what I did is I looked at what is in there now and would that still be eligible for credit in 2025? And the way that works is some of our actions have what we call a 3-year look back period. So that means that if the action occurred between January 1st, 2022 and present day, it would still be eligible for credit. But if it occurred outside of that window, it would no longer be eligible for credit. And the actions that have this look back period are mainly events, workshops, or any kind of implementation project. Our other actions that are more like where we award credit for like inventories, assessments, municipal policies, ordinances, those kind of thing do not have that 3-year look back period. So we still award credit for, any policy that may have been adopted outside or inventories that were created outside. We just ask that the town include just like a 1-sentence brief statement or description saying this document or whatever it is still relevant and used by the municipality to still be eligible for credit, if that makes sense. So when I was going through your audit, a lot of my comments are if this is still being used to provide that brief description that this is still relevant or being used, or a lot of the comments were this fell outside of that look back period, so it's no longer eligible for credit, but a more recent example would be. So for example, 3.1.1a, which is our watershed education outreach action. The narrative submitted discussed 2 different presentations. One fell outside of that look back period, but the second was still within, so that would still be eligible for credit in 2025, it looks like there was just less of a description about the second, so if you can just elaborate on it a little bit is what I meant by that, if that makes sense. And then there are a few actions as well where any type of like monitoring program, or if we award credit for funding for certain things, that has to be active at the time of submission or within that year. So there are certain actions where we just ask to specify that. For example, I know you did submit a funding one. I'm not sure where it is now, but we just ask that you still just provide what's the word I'm looking for? Documentation that shows that that funding program is still active, or yeah. And then do you have any questions on any of that so far?
Summer, just to go back to the dates. So clearly we're not going to make something in April. The August 19th date
Mhm.
Is that, so what would, so I thought there was a date in December or something that this could be due as well. Like when would we have to actually submit this to qualify for?
Yeah, so every year we do have the same April and August deadline. There's always one in April and there's always one in August. So to recertify for 2025, you would have to latest do the August deadline. There is no deadline later than that one for
So
certification. Obviously, the spring one is coming up really quick, but I will say that for our certification deadlines, you don't have to like have a full submission to submit, if that makes sense. Like if you only have like a few actions completed by the April deadline and you still want to submit, they'll still get reviewed and they'll basically be like pre-approved going into that summer deadline, if that makes sense. So I always recommend, like, even if you've just worked on your application like the tiniest bit, like just submit it because you're getting pre-approval essentially going into the next deadline.
Summer, is there a minimum number of points that you need to kind of check off for this kind of pre-approval stage, or is that not relevant?
Nope. For
Okay.
if you're just looking
200
for,
for bronze, but go ahead.
yeah, so for certification, it would be 200 or more, hitting
Right.
an action in every category. But if you could literally for April, like if you have one action, you could submit one action.
Got it. Yeah, that's
Yep.
what I was asking. Okay, thank you.
And a
Yep.
very logistical question, okay, like, so we have what we have for the April deadline, we submit it and then you guys put it in that portal, or do we put things in the portal? I don't know if you're calling it a portal, but it sounds like all of our stuff from 2022 is in this location.
Yep, it's in your application. Do
And
you
so,
have access to the application or have you gone in there? Yeah.
I have not.
Okay. So you do all have access, or if you don't, you would just have to make an account on our website and then on the back end, I can add you to the application. But yeah, the way it works for a partial submission is when you're in the application, you can either mark the actions planned, unplanned, or completed. So we only look at actions that are marked completed. So you just mark the actions completed that you want to be reviewed. And then for a partial, you just have to email us and say, we want to submit a partial. Like, please only look at the actions that are marked completed. But I can help you with that when the time comes. It's really simple once you're in the application portal.
Okay, fantastic.
Mm-hmm. So
Other questions so far? All right. Go ahead, Summer. Do you have other thoughts on this?
yeah, so I feel like the audit is always just a great starting place to start working on actions because you're basically just updating actions that have already been completed. You're not reinventing the wheel on any of those. So it's really helpful for anyone that just has never worked on a sustainable CET application because you start to get familiar with the way our actions work, the language, and how the application portal works as well. So I always recommend going through the audit and starting off just like updating those actions that need to be updated, marking them complete, and then keeping track as you go. So then once you finish going through the actions in the audit and updating them, you have an exact number of points that you're going to be working with. And then you can kind of move from there and see, okay, we have actions in every category except for two. We need to find something for two. And then you can kind of just keep moving from there. So I always find that really helpful to just build that foundation first. Since it seems like you have a great group of people, I always also recommend just like divvying it up a little bit. So saying like, okay, like this person can work on categories like 5 to 7, this person can work on like 8 to 10. And then my role in this is I'm available to answer any questions you might have as you're working on it. If you're working on actions and you're just like a little unsure, like, does this work here? Or do you think this would be a better fit somewhere else? I'm always happy to take a look. I'm also happy to help upload if you have all the documentation compiled for an action and you want it's easier to just send it to me rather than uploading it into the portal. I'm always happy to help upload as well. Just kind of here for direct support wherever you may need it. The only other required component for submission, as I mentioned before, is action 1.1, and that is the equity toolkit. So that the equity toolkit is essentially it's a narrative that is tied to another one of our actions. What it requires, what we're asking towns to do is we're asking towns to reach out to residents, all residents or residents from all different backgrounds, and get their feedback on an action and then implement that feedback into the action. For example, a town, I just read a toolkit recently where a town, they are building a new playground in town and they reached out to all residents via a survey and asked, what do you want to see in this playground in terms of different accessibility requirements, etc. Got feedback and then implemented that feedback into the playground implementation, if that makes sense. So Darien submitted 4 toolkits in 2022. There were 2 toolkits where it was just a little bit unclear on the time frame if they would still be eligible for credit in 2025, because the toolkits do have that 3-year look back period that I mentioned. So I would recommend reading your toolkits. You would have better insight than I do as to when they were completed. But if they were completed in their entirety between January 1st, 2022 and now, they may still be eligible for credit. If not, since it's the only action that we require for certification, we pre-approve them and we will review and edit drafts and like work with you on the toolkit in advance to certification. So there's no surprises, going into that deadline.
Okay, and so that's a great example, Summer. I know there was a group working on one of our playgrounds and they did just that and they had some town conversations. So having some paper shuffle around that, and that happened this summer, we would put towards that.
Yeah, that sounds like something that may work. I would need like more details if that would be great about, but that sounds like a really great idea. I will say that it has to be completed to award credit. So was the playground built or?
Well, yeah, let me get back to you on that.
Yeah, but also if it's going to be completed before the certification deadline, like that works too. And for equity toolkits, we also, our team member Kate that like reviews them, she always is willing to have like a group brainstorming session as well to like get ideas for the toolkit. And that can be a separate meeting as well.
So just for kind of our newer members, if you can see the screen, they talked about the 12 areas and then the 13th. So this is the one she's talking about with inclusive and equity, that we have to do something. These are required for all certifications. And then where Summer said we could pick different sections. 2 is the thriving local economy, and these are the different ideas under that. And if you click on these, it gives you all sorts of information. And then there's this land and natural resources. And then there's vibrant and creative cultural ecosystems, dynamic and resilient planning.
Do you want to share your screen, Amanda? I was sharing my screen, but I don't know where you are.
Do you see mine?
I do
No.
see a screen. Yes.
Well, I'm sharing my screen, but here you go, Amanda. You can share yours if you're. There you go.
Because where you are, you're one detail in. I don't know if Saman has seen this, and I think it's
No, I've not. Yeah, this is super helpful. Yeah, at a high level.
Okay, so 3, and you see how like under 3, there's all these areas. Under 4, And then 5 is dynamic and resilient planning. And then when you click on one of these, it tells you how many points it's worth. And then when you print, it gives you more information about it. So I just thought it would be helpful to look at the different categories quickly. And then 6, clean and diverse transportation system and choices, which is probably where the power tools come in. Yeah, there's some emission vehicle stuff. Fleet, we talked about that a lot. Mohan did a lot with that last year. And then renewal and efficient energy infrastructure and operations, it could go under this. That's 7. 8 is inclusive engagement, communication, and education. 9 is strategic materials and management. 10 is optimal health and wellness. And 11 is health, efficient and diverse housing. And then 12 is effective, compassionate, homeless prevention. And then this is that category she was saying, which is a catch-all if we think we have something creative and productive that doesn't fit under the others. And then I would write this link, and actually I can put it in the chat. Because you can go there and see these, and like I said, you can open all of these to get more information. And
Yes.
it really gives you a sense. And then what Lauren was brought up is what we've done so far. Do you want to share that again?
Yeah, it's just like if you start I mean if we go into all these categories, it gets overwhelming, right? There's so many options, so many different choices that we could pursue. We want to do everything, right? But I think it might be more efficient for us to kind of start with the spreadsheet that I went through and Summer went through, and that we have sorry, can you guys see the spreadsheet or no?
Yep.
You can. Okay. So I took the categories like optimized for equity from that page that you were showing, right? And then that's the number of it. And then Summer had gone through and said, these are the things that we need to do if we want to get those points. I have quite a few questions on this spreadsheet, and we would need to go through it, assign it to somebody, and understand what we have to do in order to get those points. But these are the easiest points to get because if we've already done this before, right? So everything's right here in front of us. So if we started from this instead of starting with that kind of overwhelming list, it might be a little easier for us to focus on where we can actually get points. Now, does it make sense for us to focus on things that are meaningful to us and things we want to accomplish, for Darien? Like, yeah, that too. Not to just check a box to check a box, right? And we've had this discussion before. So, I guess, a couple of things is I think our next action would be to actually read these, understand them, see where they're coming from, and then assign them to someone. Does that make sense?
Yep. And
So-
notice she added that column of action on the far left that coincides. So like if you wanted to know what 1.1 optimized for quality, for equity, you can see what Summer put together. And then if you wanted to know more about that, you would go to that one on that link I sent in the chat.
Yeah. I will also mention that the link that you had pulled up previously, if you're at the top of that page, you can hit, we have a few links listed. There's 3. One of them is download our action overview worksheet. So that is literally just an Excel sheet with every single sub action listed out, and you can just scroll on the sheet and it tells you what the action is, what the submission requirements are, and then how many points it's worth. And sometimes I recommend just like scrolling through that and looking at that as well, because yes, the points that are already in your application that you completed, 3 years ago is always a great place to start, but also you might be missing some of like the actions that you've accomplished in the past 3 years, if that makes sense. Like, and if you're scrolling through and reading all the actions in one place, sometimes it's easier to pick out like, oh, we did that in 2023, or oh, we did that like this year. Instead, if that makes sense.
This is great. Yeah,
Mhm.
because it's a quick one. Okay. So Lauren, do you want to walk through some of the questions you have and we can talk about taking on some of these as a committee, as committee members?
Yeah. I think so. The I want to understand. So like let's just start at the beginning. Complete the sustainable equity kit toolkit in its entirety. So the toolkit is something that Sustainable CT made, Summer?
Yep, exactly. So it's kind of
Okay.
like a 5-part narrative process. It's linked in the action where Amanda was on the page there. So if you click on
Okay.
it, you can see the toolkit. I can also email it to you in a follow-up after this as well. And then if you also click on that action and you scroll to the bottom, you can see this is the same with every action. It lists success stories. So you can click on other towns and look at their toolkits to some. I find that's like sometimes that helps towns brainstorm with how they want to apply theirs, or like, oh, I did something really similar. And just kind of look at and see like best practices of like what we're asking for as well.
I think whatever you can share with us is helpful. I wouldn't assume we know anything.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I can
thanks.
absolutely follow up a lot about the toolkit process in a follow-up email. And like I said, we often have separate meetings with towns, just like talking about it, brainstorming ideas, like coming up with, oh, we actually have done this in the past 3 years. Sometimes you just have to start thinking about it. But
Well,
yeah,
can you take us through Summer? Whose screen do you see? Do you see my screen right now?
I'm seeing the Excel sheet right now.
And is it moving?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so you're seeing my screen.
Or no, no, it's not moving. Sorry, I think I'm seeing Lauren's screen.
Was mine, now is it moving?
I see the mouse moving a little, yeah.
Okay,
Sharing my
because
screen, Amanda.
I think you and I have the same form up. That's why I don't know whose screen it is. Can you walk us through, for instance, do you want 1-1 just for simplicity? It's the first one on there. Can you think through this, Summer, in how we want to be thinking through this?
Just explain 1-1 though. That's what we just talked about, that she would send us the toolkit for. The I think
Well, I don't care which one you take, if you want to take 2-3, but I'm curious how you're thinking through this.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, how so exactly? Sorry.
Okay, so 2-3, development of meaningful, distribute to user-friendly inventory of local businesses.
Yep.
Okay, so to strengthen your application here, please provide the updated link to the business inventory and an updated screenshot to the inventory at this inventory may be outdated. Additionally, if this inventory was created over 3 years ago, please provide a brief description of how it's still relevant. Okay, so you're saying in our, I keep calling it a portal, but in our application, somewhere we have some meaningful user-friendly inventory of local business.
Yep, exactly. So you can see the action requires, since Lauren provided all of that extra information, which was really helpful. So you can see that the submission requirements are your inventory, a screenshot of the web page where it's posted, and then if your inventory was created more than 3 years ago, to include a brief description of how it is still relevant and used by your municipality. So when I looked at what is submitted in the application portal, the link was just, it wasn't working, it was outdated, and the screenshot was too. So just like providing an updated version of that, and then that brief description saying, yep, this is still used by our municipality. All the previous certification reports are public on our website. I can put the link to Darian's in the chat so that you can see what you submitted for in 2022. I wasn't aware that it seems like I'm not sure who has access to your application portal, but like perhaps definitely next steps after this would be to set up accounts and hook you all up on the back end so that you all have access to this, because I was assuming that you did have access, but this is, hopefully this helps. So this is the link to your certification report from 2022. So you can see what you submitted. There's some links there. It was just a little bit outdated, but obviously you still do have business inventory. So what I'm asking is, yep, just provide an updated screenshot and an updated link, and then just clarifying, yes, this is still relevant and used by our municipality.
Okay.
So
download
as
the PDF version here,
Huh?
right?
Yeah.
Download the PDF version of that new thing.
Sorry.
So you're saying like updating those, we would literally go in here and download the PDF version.
The download the
Like now
PDF.
I'm in the sustainability, I clicked on the link you put in there.
Mhm. That's just the link to your 2022 report, so you can see what I'm talking about. If you
Okay,
like, if
great.
you scroll, you can see every action that you submitted for, and then those attachments are what you submitted under
Yeah,
every
got you.
action.
Okay, so then we can go down here, we can see what the latest, so basically we can read them from the spreadsheet, what needs to be, and then what needs to be updated. Then we can go here to 2.4 and provide whatever needs updated. And each of us can add to this once you put us in once you add us to the application.
Yep. Yeah. So exactly. So I can add you all. You have to make an account on our website, which is super easy. And then once you do that, just send me the email that you used to make the account, and we can add you as contributors. So, would it be helpful if I shared my screen and showed you what it would look like from your end?
Yeah.
You're inside the application, because I have access to yours.
That'd
Okay,
be
let
amazing.
me pull up your application quickly. Okay. Perfect. Click editor. All right. Okay, are you able to see?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what it looks like. Will look like from your end on our website once you log in, and hit your application. So collapse them all. So it looks exactly like that action page that you just shared, but you can click on all of the actions. So I guess we were just talking about it, the business inventory. So if you click on 2.3, this is what it looks like when you go in on your end. You have right here, which is what I mentioned, you can mark things planned, unplanned, or completed. So once you finish only actions that are marked completed will be reviewed. So once you finish something, you mark it completed here. You can change how many points you are requesting right here. This is where the submission information goes. So you just state which actions you are submitting for and how many points. As you can see here, so this is the 2.3.1A, the inventory for 10. And then in 2022, you submitted for this one for 10 points as well. So this is just as you left it from 2022, essentially, is what I was trying to say. It's like basically a cloud. And then right here.
And don't take those off. Leave all that stuff in,
Yeah.
even if it has a no longer available, just leave it all.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't mess with anything in there. I left it exactly as is when I went through it. But yep, so then this is where you can attach files and submit them. So all of your attachments are right here from 2022 for your business inventory. And then this is where you add any details about what you submit right here. So this is where I would add those like brief statements saying this is still older than 3 years, but it is still current and relevant and used by the town. I would add that in this section right here. And then you just list if you had any partners here, anything else you want us to know? And then this is just for our knowledge, like, was this previously completed by the town or was this inspired by us? And then once you are done, you just hit the save button, super important. And that's all. And then down here, you can see any reviewer feedback that you got from 2022. So sometimes that's helpful too if you're looking at older actions. But yeah, so that's exactly how it looks when you're going to go in. And it
And
looks
Cliff,
just
Cliff, last time, did you all go in and add to this, or did you all give it to Kathy and she added it?
It was a mix. I put my stuff in directly. I think other people gave things to Kathy to put in. The
Okay.
key thing is that there's an agreement about who's going to do what.
And did you guys pick the different categories? Is that how, like Summer was saying, okay, one picks 1 to 5, the other 8 to 10. Did you just pick numbers like that, sections?
Well, but not based on sequences, based on things that interested us or where we thought we had some expertise or some contacts or some reason to be able to do it.
Yeah, gotcha. So I think
So-
that's the next step, right? Is what areas do people want to take?
So that's what I was saying. So if we go back to the document, we can discuss that. So let me go back in. So couple of questions. Can you guys see my screen with the?
Yep.
Okay. So we have, let's just start back at number 1 where we were. So we got 10 points in 2022 for completing this, and we can go in and we can see the action. And then you say maybe we're eligible in 2025, but why is the points at 0? Do we have to decide how many points it is, or would it just be 10 again?
Well, yeah. So I put 0 when I wrote maybe because it was unclear if it will still be eligible or not. So I didn't want to write 10 points because it was just unclear. So I wrote, it's unclear on the time frame, like I mentioned before, when it took place. So if it was in that look back period window, completed and entirely in that look back window from January 1st, 2022 to present, then yes, it would be 10 points again, but I put the maybe because it was just unclear from the submission.
Okay, so for our purposes, how do we understand if we can get points in this or not? Like, would this be 10? Could we anticipate 10 points if we do it right?
Like I said before, I would recommend you all going back and looking at those toolkits. Like, you have better knowledge than I do when they took place, because there was no clear dates in the submission. So if you look at the submissions and it jogs your memory, or you knew about them and you can confirm that it took, or you know someone that worked on it and you can confirm when it took place, then yes, it would be worth 10 points, but just as is, it's not clear.
Or if you know something else that's happened since.
Yeah, or
Add to, that could be the points.
yep, or you can work on a new toolkit for 10 points and not use the ones that are in there because it's unclear if they're still eligible for credit.
So this is where, correct me if I'm wrong, we'd pick whatever categories, and each of us would be responsible. Let's say, Lauren, you're picking one. You read the yellow, you go into the thing we were just in, the application, you read what's there. Is that updated? Is there something that needs updated? Is it still active? Do we need a sentence from someone at the town telling us that that policy is still implemented? Update it, right? By
Yeah.
downloading that on that application.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, Amanda. I don't know how much we're gonna know about this. Like, maybe you guys know more than me, but I think we need a couple of folks from the town to help walk us through like each item and say like, yeah, I remember when we did that, and yeah, we're still doing that. And it's just, to me, like, I wouldn't know any of this, what they're doing, what they're not doing, right? We're kind of a new committee, if you will.
I
So-
think now that I'm kind of, Summer, you're so helpful. I'm getting a better understanding of this. And Cliff, this might feel elementary to you. So feel free to add or along the way, but I think what we might want to do is each take a section, because when I look at 12 categories, it's overwhelming. Give me a couple sections, especially something in like the education, mental health, or equity, or some of these categories that, to your point earlier, I have a sense of what the town has done from having kids in the school system, from my own just overview of the town and watching some of the things. And then if we're looking at our sections we're taking, we can come back with questions. And Lauren, you might say, I don't know if the town, have they done this, that, or this? And at our meeting, we might be able to say, oh yeah, this is, the answer to your first question, or we don't know. Now we have a list of questions for the selectman's office. But I think we each have to pick these sections to get a good sense of what they're even asking. Like, I can't tell you I have a good sense of what we've submitted and what each section requires. And like, that's where I don't want to go through 12. How many people do it? 1, 2, 3, 4 of us?
So two things. One, in terms of historical information, I think Kathy's probably going to be our best resource, rather than various people in the town, although she then may refer us to somebody in the town. So that's one point I'd like to make. The second is, we went through the application as a committee. We went through sort of category by category, saying, okay, this is what they're looking for. Well, we don't have any farms in town. This isn't applicable to us. Move on. Well, we're not a city. We don't have homeless people. Move on. And then we come across something about, are you treating your seniors properly? Okay, I can do some work on that, and it's mine. And then we come across something that relates to the schools, and somebody said, oh yeah, I can take that, rather than, just take it section by section and find that you've been given a section that really doesn't relate to you.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think
Okay.
that's a great process. I'm actually working with a town right now that big Excel spreadsheet that I just mentioned before, that action overview sheet that lists out all of our actions, the requirements, and the point totals. They're working on that as a shared document. So like in meetings, they'll talk about, they have like a different color for actions like in that sheet. So they'll highlight rows of actions that like they know that the town has already done. And then they're highlighting rows that like they want to accomplish. And then they're also like marking it up like as they go, like who's doing what, and like basically as Cliff just said, like kind of going through section by section, and they're using that as a big working document, and it's working for them really well.
So actually, this might be a good point for me to ask the question I've been wanting to ask from the beginning. We have used Sustainable CT as an opportunity to sort of check on ourselves. How are we doing? Are the things we think we've done properly? And get, a seal of approval in the certification. And I don't disagree with anything that's been said so far, especially Lauren looking carefully at all of this, getting the low hanging fruit. If we're going for a certification, makes a ton of sense, doing the relatively modest amount required to update things so that we can benefit from what was done in the past. That's all good. You, Summer, sort of touched on, is this something that was inspired by Sustainable CT? That's what kind of interests me a lot. Are there things that we have not done that we could do as a community that would make sense for us, that would really move the town ahead in terms of being more sustainable? And I'm wondering, because as I mentioned a moment ago, a lot of things in the list just don't apply to a community like ours. You're covering the whole state. You've got agrarian communities and urban communities. So I'm wondering if, as you looked at what we've done and what could have been done, if there are any things that you've seen that maybe Sustainable CT might inspire us to do.
Yeah, I mean, we just have so many actions that I always say to towns like our program, you can take out of it what you want to take out of it. So if you're reading through our list of best practices and there are certain actions that like really resonate with your community that you think would be great and inspiring, I love when towns pick out things that they want to accomplish and they work on it. I think it's just such important work. And I think that as you're going through this, like, yeah, you should pick out things that you want to accomplish, and that would be beneficial for your community.
But you
But-
need one in each area.
Yep.
No, we don't. Oh, in each general, you need one action in each category, but it doesn't have to be a new thing or it doesn't have to be a new initiative or inspired by CT.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's nothing, Summer, that sort of jumped out at you. You say, "Oh my gosh, this would be perfect for a town like Darien." They haven't done it.
I can think about it for sure. Nothing honestly jumped out at me right when I was doing your audit. You have accomplished a lot as a community. From what I saw from your 2022 application, just really great work overall, like very all-encompassing. I think that if I had to pick, in your category 7, which is our clean energy category, there wasn't much. There was just the you're opted into CPACE was where you received credit in category 7. So if I had to pick a category where I didn't see a lot of
Interesting.
actions completed, it would be that one. But again, like different actions resonate or are more beneficial for different communities. So, who am I to say?
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Cliff, I do have a question for you on the prior submittals. I'm just curious about how long it took to gather all this and submit these documents from start to finish. So we were talking about the submittal dates, right? About it being in April and August. So did you start in January for the August submittal? How did that work? Do you recall?
So I've been through 2 cycles on this, and honestly, it's a big blur. I know that it was a long time. I know it was a lot of work, and the work was shouldered by not everybody on the committee. It wasn't a big committee to begin with. I'm not sure. Maybe we were 6 people. I think 2 people did essentially nothing, and everybody else dug in. So I'm sorry, I don't really have a good answer for you.
Okay, no
It
problem.
isn't
I was just browsing through all the backup files, right, that have been uploaded for each of these items. So I was just curious about the time frame, and this goes back to Lauren's question of what are those deadlines, right? And the one in April is coming at us pretty quick.
Yeah.
So just
I tell you what I'm going to
curious.
do. I'm going to go back into my files and look at the dates, and maybe that'll tell me what you want to know.
Sure.
I did this for Sustainable Jersey before in the past, and
Okay.
we started a year ahead of time doing
I was going to say it sounds like a year's
be
worth of
honest.
work.
Yeah.
Because I was just following through. You had the very first section open there, and Summer shared the link. So I was just looking at all the backup documents. So it is going to take a while, but if, like you were pointing out, Summer, a lot of the items require dates maybe to back things up, and it's a slightly, I would say, a lower lift, right? Those may be easier to achieve, and maybe that's the way we kind of go through this is take a look at what slight adjustments you could make. And I think, Lauren, I know you're setting out to complete those columns there. I think we really need to get our eyes on all the files and documentation that's gone into some of these to get a feel for what it is.
Yeah, and 2 thoughts on that. One is just for historical. Last year, we really, when we got the new selectmen, they actually stopped this committee. It was on pause. And so we couldn't meet. We didn't know if we'd be reactivated. So if you're curious why we're talking about this now and not, 9 months ago, that's why. And then the second thing, I hear you on, like, to me, it feels a lot to look at a little. What I would love to leave today with is the sections that I will dig into and really understand better and kind of be the, and Cliff, if you have a different idea and don't think this will work, being you've done this before, but I think for me to take a couple sections and understand those really well, and if we each take a couple sections and kind of own that section, rather than having to learn deep dive into all these 12 sections.
So, go ahead, Cliff.
Well, two things. One, in respect of Suman's question, it looks to me like for the application we did most recently, we started seriously in January. We'd done some preliminary talking about it at the end of the prior year. So we had a full seven and a bit months working on that. In terms of what you're just saying, I still think it makes sense for us as a committee to try to move quickly through the whole application, sort of each step and stub step, just sort of read it. Does this resonate with somebody? Does somebody have a connection to this or not? Somebody want to adopt this thing rather than say, okay, you look at one when the thing that you might be interested in is in 7.
No,
So
I agree with you 100%.
So, Summer, the yellow, just remind me, the yellow is for something that we can do, and the white is for something we can't. What was it?
So the yellows I highlighted any actions that I felt like needed a more like significant change or review of materials. So
Okay. And the white?
The white is just yes or no, like it is still eligible for credit or it's not.
So do we just ignore the white for now?
No, don't ignore it. Definitely read my comments. I might have a few like just you need a one statement thing in there that was just like, yes, this will definitely roll over, but just please provide that brief description. Like for example, 3.11.1, yes, those points will definitely roll over. Just please add that description in there. The yellow is just more like significant. You need to review this or confirm the dates.
All right. So the white line, like the white line, it says eligible 2025 and you wrote no.
Yeah.
So it's really a maybe.
No, it's a no for the yeses that are in white. Just
I think the no in that is because it must have been completed within the period and it wasn't.
Yep. So for that action, it has that 3-year look back that I mentioned in that toolkit was completed in 2021, as it says in the
So
note, why it's not eligible for credit in 2025. So what is currently in your application will not, for that specific action, will not roll over into 2025, but that doesn't mean that you can't complete a new one.
Right. So that tells me, Cliff and Summer, we'd have to go look in 1-1 of our applications, see what we submitted, see if that thing is still going on or we've done something since and add that.
Yeah, so this is just a review of what is only in your application now of those materials that are in there currently, what updates might need to be made for them to be still eligible for credit, or if no, that material will no longer be eligible for 2025, like you can either delete it or upload something more recent for credit at your discretion.
And because we weren't involved in the last round of this, we have oh, I remember, yeah, it's that thing. Like we don't have that basis, which is why we're all looking at this like a deer in headlight on some level, because we don't know what those attachments are. We have to go look them all up.
Yeah, I totally understand. I obviously have no background either in what you have completed or not, but just for clarification, just when I did the audit, Kathy emailed me and requested it, and she said that she had worked on the previous 2 certifications. So I kind of completed it assuming that the person reading had worked on an application before. So I do apologize for any like unclearness in my notes.
No, it's okay.
So
Kathy has since stepped down and she's no longer on the committee, so we don't have that anymore, unfortunately.
Well, Lauren, I mean, I think if we ask Kathy, or for that matter, Carolyn, a specific question, you know, where is the document for this, or when was that done, or who should we talk to about this? I'm sure they'd be happy to tell us.
But this is
Yeah.
where, Cliff, to your point, I think, because to respect everyone's time, we said 1:30 on this meeting. I think it'd be really helpful to each raise our hand for areas that interest us, that we can do some of this dive in. I could look at, for instance, equity, or, oh, I guess this is your screen now. There's one on education, which would be a great fit for me. I think the seven
Yeah.
six would be great for Mohan.
Okay.
May I just, and this needs to be recorded. Someone needs to start to look at this. If we do this, if this person, if you pick up the two things you just mentioned, how many points might we get? And we start to have the spreadsheet populated with people and points. And then before we go out and bust a gut, we come to a conclusion, oh my gosh, we're never going to have enough points, or we don't have enough people working on it, or what have you.
Love it. Yes.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I'm very confident that Darian will easily be able to certify bronze. You have a lot of things going on. You have a lot of great work. It's just kind of a matter of pinpointing this is what we've done, and like this is what we also want to accomplish for points. I also recommend, maybe, since again, like this audit is only reflecting the work that's already in your application, which is only reflecting work that is at minimum 3 years old. Like I recommend whoever takes over what sections maybe review the actions that are also in that section to make sure, oh, we did this in 2023, we did this in late 2022, we did this year. Or like sometimes I find with towns, like with the audits for certain actions, it's easier to just replace the old documentation with something new that happened this year rather than, update something old, if that makes sense. Like, for example, the toolkits, like it might be easier to just complete a new one rather than try and go back and figure out when exactly those 2022 ones were completed.
That raises another point, actually. If you go through this bit by bit as a committee, looking at each thing, you need to have some awareness about what's going on in town. And so Craig Flaherty, who was our chairman the first year, he knew a lot because of different boards he was on and different committees. And he was able to say, oh, yeah, I know people have been working on this. Don't worry, I'll go check on that one. And Carolyn, again, knew a lot about what was going on in town. And she's, oh, yeah, I know who's working on this. I can do it. For people who are new to town and on the committee already, that's hard because you don't necessarily know what's going on in town. And I will confess, I know somewhat what's going on in town, but I mean, I don't pay a lot of attention to the sewer commission, for example, and they might be doing things that are very relevant. And there are other commissions that I don't pay a lot of attention to that are doing things that are relevant. I know a lot about what's going on with seniors in town. Okay, I can dig in on something like that. I'm passionate about leaf blowers. Okay, let me get into that. I'll dig it out. I'll find out.
I think that's what we are gonna have to do, is taking a section. And I love what you're saying, Cliff, because while the old committee could go through together as a team and go, oh yeah, that, and oh yeah, that's so and so, and we don't have that luxury because we don't, for all the reasons you just mentioned. So that's where it's like, if I take a section, if I take equity, I can read through that. I can imagine, oh, I have a couple questions I'm going to ask this person about this. I'm going to ask, I think Kathy or Carolyn or even Craig would be happy to take a meeting with one of us to ask some questions or go through our section. I don't know that they want to sit in meeting after meeting with us and be part of the committee and listen to the like details in the weeds, but I do think they'd take our call and answer questions we have about each of our specific areas right? Don't you think, Cliff?
Absolutely. I totally agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
And I
Um,
think
but
the other
equity,
one,
one
Christina,
thing,
I think she'd take a call.
one thing about the equity toolkit, that can be applied to any of the steps, any of the 7 steps. And so of all of the different things, that's one that the committee really has to sit down as a whole saying, looking at that and saying, well, I'm working on XYZ. Can I apply the toolkit to this in one way or another?
Amanda, sorry to interrupt. I do have to run to a meeting. I think I'd mentioned that I was able to attend till 1 o'clock. Lauren, you could put my name down for 5, which is the dynamic and resilient planning.
Okay.
And I think that way I can leave with one item that I can kind of take a look at and kind of report back, just based on the documents that currently sit within sections.
So-
It seems 5.1.
Sorry, that was 5 point
five?
what?
5.
It's just 5, so it would be 5.1 through 5.
Um,
It's called dynamic and resilient planning.
Sorry, let me try to find it, but it's 5.1.
It's all of 5.
It's
So
all of 5, Lauren. It's
If you will.
5.1 through 5.
Okay, so the one above 5 is 4, so it starts at 5.1, yes?
Yes.
So 5.5. And then that's it. So just 2.
I'll
Okay.
start with that, and at least back to Amanda's suggestion, just take a look, see what's there, right? And be able to see how what it's going to take. If similar to what Cliff is saying, do I know enough about that? What kind of resources are there? Sometimes the documents themselves would have some clue, right, as far as contacts of town staff involved
To
in
be honest, Suman, this one says no changes needed. So I think we automatically get these points. I don't think anything
Oh,
needs to be done
oh,
here.
I see. Sorry. I was just looking at the
So
link and scrolling through and not your table.
5.1 is a
Um,
great example of something that doesn't have to be changed. That's integrating sustainability concepts into your plan of conservation and development, which is updated every 10 years. So this is still relevant to the town. You don't need to change anything since it's a policy, but if this is a category that interests you, I recommend going through on our website the different actions in that category and thinking, like, since Darian only submitted for a few in category 5, maybe there's more that you want to accomplish or you have done in the past since you submitted in 2022 that you want to add to your application. So I still recommend going through this category.
I see what you're saying. So there may be some other points to be gained here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which
Like
is
this
Well,
is the spreadsheet is
13.
only a
Okay.
reflection of what you've already done.
But yes, and there are also a bunch of other categories that we could look at to see, whatever. But I think what we want to do is focus on this first. And I think that's the best strategy.
All right,
But
well, will you
correct me
put
if I'm
her down
wrong.
for 5? Because she's got to go. So she can at least become the expert, if you will, or the known on that that category. I'm not going to touch that category. I need a
Right,
bite.
so-
I can't take this whole thing on, but a bite. So she just took that bite. 5?
Yeah, there's just 2. So
Oh,
it's
there's
just
9.
saying,
There's 9 options there.
I'm sorry, 9 options?
Yeah, so this spreadsheet is the audit of your 2022 application. So these are only actions that you submitted for in 2022 versus we have many more actions in that category that you can.
I'm going to send you guys this Excel spreadsheet because this breaks it down. This is the document he was talking about where it's like you can pick all these.
That's
So
fine.
My thought, Amanda, was just because we have limited resources that we just focus on this first before we kind of jump into all the other possibilities that could be, right? And to kind of just like go crazy. I think we might
some of these might
overwhelm
be things we're
ourselves.
already doing. Some of these might be things we're already doing or are easy to do.
Yeah, sure.
We have
But-
no idea what 5 is, and now none of us have to look at it because Suman's going to look at that and get a sense. And you're right. She can start with the ones we've done and pick the low-hanging fruit. And then she can look because there might be some other stuff we can get points there and find in some of these other categories. We don't have a lot of points.
Yeah, right. However, this spreadsheet, like we know what we've actually done, and I just think it would
Okay,
be
so
less
can we go,
effort.
what I'd like to do, what I'd suggest is we pick some categories. Between now and the 26th, we're gonna review those categories each independently. So when we come to that meeting, we have a sense of something. Right now, we have a spreadsheet we've all scanned fairly well. But I don't know that any of us, except Cliff maybe, and Summer for sure, have a good sense of what each category means and what is done and how many minutes it's going to take to get those points.
I guess my question is, would it be a better use of Suman's time to maybe take like 3 actions on this spreadsheet versus digging into just the one action that, may or may not be, whereas this is sort of more guaranteed, in my opinion, a better use of our time and limited resources. But that's just my opinion. If we want to kind of go crazy and do the whole thing and we have the bandwidth to do that.
Lauren,
that's
what's
fine.
in 7? Are there any yellows in 7? If we were to skip to
So this one, I thought, so this is the energy use one that Summer had mentioned.
See, there's
Benchmarking data.
that's a good Mohan one.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Maybe all
Because
the
he's
energy
done a
ones go to
ton of
Mohan.
research in this area, and this is where
Okay.
Mohan can look through all of this and go, oh yeah, I was just doing that one. And it may not have been something. How about 6, Suman?
Sure.
Okay, why don't you look at 5 or 6? And you want to look at 2 things. One is the, and I'll send them both in an email. One is the Lauren's spreadsheet where she's going to put who's responsible for it. And then I think this thing I'm looking at, we should also be looking at, because this gives all the stuff. And I agree with you 100%, Lauren. We got to hit the low hanging fruit. And that's the spreadsheet you're adding each person's, the responsible party for each section. Though there might be some low hanging fruit we didn't do in 22 that we can look at, like all the research Mohan did on EVs. He went down a rabbit hole on that. I am sure there's a point for that we didn't get in 2022. And so when he looks down the whole list, he might be able to pick some of that. And so we really need to look at both. Okay, fair? What do you like, Cliff, Lauren? I like
Systematically.
8.
So if we went systematically, maybe we could look at each one. So like I could do this one, the local, I don't know anything about it, but I'll give it a shot.
I like 8, 10, and 11.
Businesses. So then we have provide, this is also businesses. Do we have provide watershed education? I think we do this. Actually, I think there was yeah, I could take this one too.
Which one, 2?
So I'm
No,
going
3.
systematically. Are you looking at my screen?
Yeah, but don't go into the details. Go into the categories. So there's 12 categories. You're on 3 right now,
The
right?
category is provide watershed education.
Right, so
So
that's
I was on the Environmental Commission. We have done educational type events related to that. Watershed management plan. I don't know, but since it's in the category, I'll take. Okay, develop an open space plan.
See, here's the thing, Lauren. What you're going through right now is all under 3.
Yeah.
So you might as well just take all of 3 rather than 4 of us are deep diving in 3 or 2 of us.
Mhm.
Just take all of 3.
Okay.
So 1 was equity. Cliff, did you take equity?
No, the equity you have to do in every category.
Do you want,
Okay.
can you help us through that?
It can be applied to any category. You don't have to.
Well, you have to look at it in every category to see where you can apply it.
Yeah.
So the next category is inventory, tourism, and cultural assets.
Where are you now?
We're going in order, just so like, because jumping around kind of might be a little bit harder.
Okay, so one, that goes in everything because that's the equity. Number two is thriving local economies. So 2-1, 2-2, 2-3.
So I don't know if you're seeing my screen, but we already did those, right? So we did the one, Amanda, you have, right? So you have these couple of things, right?
Well, what
Then
they,
we have
what they're saying is those go in all of it. Okay, so then you've got 2. Lauren, you took 3.
right. So okay, Amanda has 1. I have 2 and 3, which is kind of a lot. And then 4 is here. So I don't know who wants to take 4, but it's inventory, tourism, and cultural assets.
I know we worked on those in the past. I know we did submissions about it. I don't know that it advanced the town in any meaningful way. It's not something that interests me.
It looks like it's related to like arts and culture.
All right, put me down on that. I'll do 4.
Okay. Good. Great.
And like,
And
And
if
then
we don't assign them all, I think that's okay.
yeah, of
We can
course,
just get
anything under
started.
4. Because let me
Okay.
just show you a sec here, because I think I'm not,
So we did 5, which is for Suman, which she volunteered for. 6 is we have Suman. 7, I put Suman and Mohan because it's emission vehicle deployment, zero emission vehicle deployment. And then I put Mohan for energy use on 7. So he'll have all of 7.
yep,
If you
that's
guys
awesome.
are good with that,
Can I
guess.
show you quick? My gosh.
And then
Here, Lauren, this is what I'm talking about, where I keep going overhead. You see this document?
I guess I have to stop sharing. Hold on.
Because I think what we do, what number are you on right now? 8?
Well, we're working off the low-hanging fruit spreadsheet that Summer did for us from previous.
Yep, I got it. So what we want to do when we leave today is we want to be looking at both of these. Yours is the low
Right.
hanging fruit, but this could be low hanging fruit too, because
Sure.
stuff, right? Okay, so you understand what I'm,
Sure.
so do you see where my cursor is? There's 7 and they can go through. Whoops.
Right. So the
Okay.
ones that I think, yes,
they
and they
do
can go
all of it.
reference this, but this is kind of a lot, right? So if we focused on what we had for the low hanging fruit, and then we went back and referenced the other thing, should we get extra time to do so, that might make sense.
Just so everyone knows they can look at both of these. I'm
Yeah.
not sold there's no low hanging fruit here.
Yeah, there.
Yeah. So a lot of these are like, no, like we don't need to do anything, or we need to write a sentence that this is still in place, or we just need to make a couple of updates to it or something, right? Instead of kind of doing entirely new actions or figuring out if we did something or not. Does that make sense?
We're going round and round. So let's keep
Yeah.
moving. 8.
Right. So number 8 is hold a sustainability event. Do you
We're
want me to
gonna
share my
keep going.
screen again?
I can take that one.
Okay. Okay.
Yep, I stopped. Go ahead.
And then, so there's some additional actions under 8, like communication strategy.
I'll take 8.
Okay. Okay. And then 9 is recycle additional materials. See, that would be something Carolyn would be so wonderful with.
Cliff, how about you take that one?
I-
You have a good sense
I
of that.
Well, I will look at this and report back to you. That doesn't mean that I will end up doing something on it.
I think that's our takeaway, right? Is that we will go and see what's needed, right? So I put these extra columns here that say questions for the town, Kathy, Craig, or Carolyn that we might have. If we want to request resources for it or add other information, we can put those in that columns. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. I think, are you sharing your screen?
Yeah, no, you're not seeing it. Okay, hold on. Okay, so
There you go.
I added these columns in I and J and K and L. So if we have questions, we can populate those. The responsible party's name would be in I, the questions will be in J, and K will say what other information, or if we need extra resources, or we don't think this is humanly possible, or we don't know anything about it, whatever you want to write in there. I think does that make sense? Do those columns make sense to you?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we're almost done, I think. Recycle additional materials. So Cliff will get 9. So that'll be all the waste stuff, Cliff. And then 10 will be develop and promote community growing spaces.
That's going to be probably a lot of Great Island, which again, we didn't have in 22. So that'll be interesting.
Well, keep in mind, these are things you need to have done. You can't say, oh, I'm going to do it next year.
Yeah.
We
Fair.
did do it. So it looks like we got 15 points in 2022. And it says this action requires that your garden space was created over 3 years ago to provide a description of what you're doing to keep your garden space current and relevant. So they just want you to update what they already did. So you'd have to look over the documents that are in there.
Yeah, or if you
I
have
guess.
any new updates with community gardens, if there's a new initiative to like the more relevant and like current the material, the better, because like when certification, all of our certification reports are uploaded on our website, and like a lot of the times other towns are like looking to them to see what other towns are currently doing and like become inspired. So I always recommend if there is an update, putting that in there
Do
to
we
reflect
know about
the work you're currently doing.
well, I know we have a community garden. Maybe that's why we got the points before. So do you guys know the people that run that? I don't know them.
There,
Cliff,
there,
you take
there.
that one?
So, I think I've tried to explain my position on this application. I'm not terribly interested in documenting things that have been done. I'm interested in doing new things. And
Well, I think they're looking at like putting another garden on Great Island, right? Like another community garden that they've looked into. I don't know exactly what they've decided on yet, but that was one of the things I heard when I went to the event.
Yeah. And there's a difference though, right? Like a lot of this stuff, we're reporting what's been done. I want to do things too, but I think the future stuff we do that is what is going to be reported in the 28. Is that right, Summer? So anything done today onward, right? You say you want to do fresh new things, Cliff. Those things are coming. Those are going to be reported later. We're looking at what's been done and reported between 22 and 25.
Yeah, or like anything that can be done before when you're planning to submit. Also, I'm also linking here. So these are all of our no cost assistance programs or resources that we offer. For example, we offer, like I mentioned, helping towns host CPACE workshops for commercial commercial building owners to incentivize energy efficiency upgrades, or we also host community resilience building workshops with the Nature Conservancy to help towns take a
Can you send
climate.
us a list of what you guys do, Summer?
Yeah, so I just linked it in the chat.
Oh,
So
great. Thank you.
our webpage for it. So if you're looking for things that your town can maybe accomplish like this spring or this summer, I would recommend checking this out and seeing if any of these opportunities interest you, because it really is our goal to make they're really easy once you sign up to do them. We make it as easy as possible, and like they're just really great opportunities in my opinion.
can you also, unfortunately, I'm on this with a cell phone. Can you email that to me, that link to me?
100%. Yeah, I'll send that in a follow-up email. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
to all of you. Yeah.
So just to get through the last couple, anybody know anything about affordable housing or affordable housing development in town?
Yes,
Or-
this is a major topic in town. There's a state requirement, and we're having a lot of trouble getting to it. And the town's doing everything it can on this. But we have a lot of problems because land is very expensive here. So, I mean, the planning and zoning works on this. The Board of Selectmen works on this. There are a lot of people who work on this.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
We've gotten through the state, you're supposed to have so much affordable housing, and Darienne's gotten what is it? Where they didn't have to do that.
It's like a reprieve or something. They're giving us more time to do it because we've made progress. But the reality is that a lot of these things we've done are going to come away from our quota because they're deed restricted. Like Avalon, we got credit for Avalon, but Avalon's getting near 25 years old and it's going to come out, and that's going to mean we're further from our goal. We're never going to meet the state's goal. Yeah, so this is a big topic, a major topic. And what you're talking about here is simply documenting and not doing anything new or different or adding to what's being done. And you know how I feel about that.
Zoning regulations meet these. Yeah. Well, I put your name under the affordable housing. They just want to see if like funding has been committed or I guess looking at the.
That's an interesting topic. Like, how many have I signed up for? I'm curious. I've just been down a rabbit hole on that, looking for a place for my mom. And what I have found is the waiting lists are closed. So you can't even get on a waiting list if you want to live in affordable housing in Darien. And I'm going to remember the word when we get off the call. There's we have asked the state to give us a pass on having to have the state's requirement for low income housing. But now we're building all these apartments and in townhomes or condos, whatever, probably apartments. And so you'd think those builders need to have so much low income with that.
Well, they certainly do. It's a requirement. But the problem is that they're not only adding to the numerator, they're also adding to the denominator. And we're not getting very far with this. It's a huge problem.
Can you look at that, see where we are with that? Can you look at that category?
I'm not interested in documenting for documenting. I want to do something. If we can do some recycling of more products, great, I'm on it. But if we're just documenting what we're already doing, I've done this twice. I spent hours and hours and hours on it. I want to do something that's going to make a difference. I want to make sure that our schools start composting and stuff like that. So I've made my position very clear on this. I don't want to be a thorn in anybody's side. If there's some light lift I can do to help, fine. But this is not productive in my mind. That's my problem.
So I think all we want to do right now is just understand. We're not documenting. We're just like kind of come back and understand what we need to do with each category. So right now I just put Amanda and Cliff on the housing stuff. Maybe if you want to take a shot at explaining like what you think might be needed. And if it's just documentation, then don't do it. Just say we need a lot of documentation and I'm not doing this. And I think the last two are homelessness and then the implement your own sustainability actions. So we can leave those open right now if you want and just start tackling the ones that we've assigned.
So I did the homelessness last time. Okay. I got those 5 points for the town. What I did nothing to advance the town. I went and interviewed at town hall. I found out what we do when there's a homeless person. It's very interesting, actually, but it didn't do anything to help the town become more sustainable. And it was, so I learned something. I also went to all these, for the equity and inclusion, I went to all these lectures. I drove an hour and a half to get there and an hour and a half to get home. I listened to all these lectures. Most of it was stuff I already knew. And how did that help the town go anywhere? It didn't. So I find this really frustrating.
I hear you,
Sorry.
Cliff. I guess where I'm stuck is we're reporting where we've been. And if we're gonna do this bronze, we have to report where we've been. What I'd like to do is get this done as quick as possible and get the low hanging fruit so we keep it. You guys worked awfully hard to just let it go and focus the rest of our time this year on exactly what you're saying. First of all, getting our recommendations or our requests to the selectmen so he can have some like power behind what we're asking for, because we didn't have that before and we just kept making calls and not getting our calls returned. I don't want to do that either.
As far as I know, there's one big thing in here that this could help push forward, and that is getting EVs in town. I don't know, there's probably not enough time actually for this submission, but having Sustainable CT saying this is something we should be doing can only help push the town in the direction of doing something.
Okay, so
Okay.
Lauren, we covered
Yeah.
you send this document, Lauren, I'll send out to the
Yep.
group your document and also this other one, just so people have both of them.
Yeah,
And
I think,
go ahead.
yeah, I think we need to close out the meeting. And then we can send everything in a follow-up email. Just let me finish straightening up the spreadsheet a little bit more.
Okay,
I
yeah,
just
but will
wanted-
you send it? Because what I'm trying not to do is have a whole bunch. Summer's gonna send an email with the links and some of this stuff. And then I'll
Yeah.
send another one with these two documents. We'll meet on the 26th.
Yeah, perfect. I just want to chime in really quick. I just dropped a link in the chat, but I'll also send it in my follow-up email as well. Just Cliff, you were just talking about being interested in school composting, and we're actually having a webinar on Thursday, where 4 different towns, I believe, are speaking about their school composting programs and how they got them up and running and some challenges that they've had, how they face them, etc. So if that's something that you're interested in, I can follow up with that registration.
We're
well.
really interested in that. Will it be recorded?
Yeah, it will be recorded. I can send you the recording link also.
That's
Oh my-
the
I'd like that.
because you know, it's not about educating us. It's about us getting the superintendent of schools on board. And I've been trying to even just get in to see him for 2 years. So we now have anyway, I won't, that link will be hugely helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, if
And
you can
maybe we
send,
can have a watch of it, right? Or we send that to the superintendent and the principals.
Yeah.
Like, anyway. Okay,
Send-
anything else before we
yeah,
end today?
Summer, if you can send us all the links like you mentioned and you put in the chats, because like, you know, our lead isn't here on the call today, and so maybe he'll be interested in those as well. It would be really helpful. Anything you can send us on
100%.
composting, on what Sustainable CT does, and everything you can send us links to, that would be great.
Absolutely, yeah. And then moving forward, I'm here to help you guys however I can and provide direct support. So if it's helpful for me to continue attending your meetings, or if you just want to email, or if you also ever like just have a question, I'm always happy to like hop on a quick phone call as well. Like it's up to you guys, but I just wanted to let you know, like I'm here to help as much as possible, and like do not hesitate to reach out, or again, like I'm always happy to attend your meetings. Yeah.
We will definitely invite you back. You are a wealth of information. We appreciate your patience and taking us from the very beginning of this. So thank you so much, Summer, and I appreciate everyone else's time today. It looks like we'll close out our meeting at 1:36. Thank you all for coming.
Thank
Do we
you.
have to have like a motion to adjourn and a second and all that? Okay,
So moved.
Second.
great. Thanks, Cliff.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.